Hello and welcome to Daily Politics, reaching you from Trust TV here in Abuja. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy, and governance. I am Suleiman. Tonight, we are revisiting the aftermath of and the consequences of the Abuja-Kaduna train attacks 3 weeks after. On Monday, 28 March, gunmen attacked the Abuja-Kaduna train somewhere between Regina and Katari. 9 persons were reportedly killed, while many passengers were also kidnapped. According to the Nigeria Railway Corporation, NRC, a total of 163 passengers and 7 crew members have not been accounted for since the attack. All these numbers of Nigerians have spent the entire Ramadan in captivity so far and under conditions that the rest of us can only imagine. But yesterday, a spokesperson of the NRC said that while there had not been an update on the number of passengers missing since the last 2 weeks, it is possible that they will get new information to release to Nigerians very soon. Meanwhile, survivors and relatives of the victims of the train attacks have continued to express anguish. In fact, many of the now frequent abductions and killings in Nigeria, and in particular in northern Nigeria, do not draw much official response from the federal government. And even when they do, President Muhammadu Buhari usually pledges again to bring the attackers to justice. But most people are saying that never happens. So tonight, we ask, what is the situation report on the missing Nigerians on that train? Is there even a negotiation between the government and the abductors? Who, in fact, are these abductors? And overall, what can we do to end these challenges once and for all in the country? With me to discuss this issue is Professor Usman Yusuf. Professor Usman Yusuf is a professor of hematology, oncology, and bone marrow transplant, and is one of the few people who have studied some of these issues in depth and advocating for a permanent solution to the problem of banditry and security challenges in the north. You're welcome to Daily Politics.
Thank you for having me, Suleiman.
Thank you. We'll take a minute break, and when we return, we'll go straight into it and bring you all the gist. What does it mean to be in captivity in a Ramadan period? What would it mean to the victims? Just imagine that after a hard day's work, the fact that you are fasting combined with your work makes it quite challenging. But just imagine what it will be for someone under captive by terrorists or bandits or whoever. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV, and we're discussing the consequences of the Abuja-Kaduna attack, particularly on the victims of that attack who have been in captivity throughout this month. And with me to discuss this issue is Professor Usman Yusuf. Sir, you're welcome to Daily Politics once again.
Thank you for having me.
So maybe let me start with this issue. Why there hasn't been any significant update, between the past 3 weeks to date, and the only thing we have seen is, okay, the federal government announced, the president announced 2 or 3 days ago that all the people that have been in captive under various captivity must be rescued by the. Does this really solve the problem, this kind of directives?
Right. There was it an editorial by Daily Trust some time ago, or an opinion page, empty directives. I've counted the number of directives the president has given to his war commanders, to his service chiefs, that have not been complied with. So this is one of the many. I mean, what in insane crimes, the most important Nigerians here now is not you and I, but the relatives of the victims. Nobody. First of all, the Kaduna State government, that is on their tough that these things happen. The Kaduna State government has not thought it's necessary to meet with the families of these victims. The Ministry of Transportation, under whose carriage this thing happened. Anyone that enters a train has a contract with the Ministry of Transportation to deliver me safely to wherever my destination is. And they failed. Nobody in the Ministry of Transportation met with the families of these victims. I saw video clips of some members of the families trying to go to the Federal Ministry of Transportation. Nobody would see them. They were blocked.
But the Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, he visited the scene of the attacks.
The scene means nothing. The most important thing are the victims. Are the victims. But after visiting the scene, what did he do? He went to Port Harcourt and was jumping around like Usain Bolt, declaring presidency. When people are in the forest that he should be responsible for, are in the forest. This is very insensitive of the government, and it cannot be accepted. I urge all Nigerians, especially our clerics, during this Ramadan to raise their voices. The government needs to govern with the milk of humanity, and I don't see that. We have met family members of these victims over the last week. We've had heartbreaking stories. The son of an 85-year-old sick woman, 85-year-old taken into the forest. The husband of a wife who is pregnant. The son of a mother who is in the forest. The brother of a husband and a wife who is in the forest. The grandfather of little children that are in the forest. And the relative of a person who has sustained gunshot wound. The federal government, they have not thought it prudent to address, to at least discuss with, listen to the families of these relatives. That is very insensitive and is not acceptable. It's not acceptable.
What could be the motivation? Could it be maybe there are underground moves that they are making that maybe if they make any statement in public that might jeopardize such underground moves?
No, Suleiman, nobody is asking them to make any public statement. In this kind of cases, insane crimes, President Biden will be in the place and meet with the family.
Sure.
One-on-one, away from the camera. President Biden would meet with the family. If we could assemble them to come from Kaduna and Abuja, assemble them and hear their stories and see what we can do. People that are paid to do this, not done that. Where is the governor of Kaduna State? Where is the Minister of Transportation? Where is the National Security Advisor? Where is the Minister of Defense? Where is the Minister of Police Affairs? Where is the IGP? None of them have thought it right to settle down with these relatives and listen to them. Or the DGSSS. It is their responsibility, it's the failings of the government that they find themselves in the situation they're in. So it's not acceptable. All Nigerians must raise their voices and at least get the government to meet with the families of these victims. And then update the nation. What is happening? What are they doing? The Ministry of Transportation has not told us. If you look at the manifest, they said 362 tickets were sold.
Yes.
But in the train, it was reported there were 970 people. So 3 times the number of tickets that were sold. This is clear ticket racketeering.
That's one of the major issues because we don't, even now, we don't know with certainty.
Right. Nobody is telling us.
How many people are actually missing.
Absolutely. Nobody is telling us with certainty how many killed, how many injured, how many died after the attack, how many abducted, how many escaped. Whose responsibility is it? It is the responsibility of the Kaduna State government because it is within their turf and the Ministry of Transportation. Nobody is talking to the relatives and nobody is talking to Nigerians. This is not right. It is not acceptable.
So another issue beyond just the victims, also maybe is there any legal dimension to this? For example, some train tickets come, with insurance claims or whatever already enrolled, or even if there is not so, is there anything someone can do to compensate? Because some of these victims may be breadwinners, so they will leave behind families who now are probably even struggling to take care of themselves, you know, on top of the anguish of having their breadwinner in captivity presently.
Right. I'm sure the relatives are seeking legal opinions. And the legal opinion they seek will be what guides them going forward.
For example, suing the NRC or even the federal government itself?
Whoever is responsible for this. If we go on a plane and something happens, the airline is responsible. The owner of those trains is the federal government under the Federal Ministry of Transportation. The Federal Minister of Transportation is not talking to us. The Governor of Kaduna State is not talking to us. The Minister of Defense is not. The National Security Advisor is not. The Minister of Police Affairs is not. So for goodness sake, who is responsible? Who is going to take responsibility? It's not acceptable. And I urge all Nigerians, especially our clerics, during this month of Ramadan, to raise their voices. Our people are in the forest. People that have sustained gunshot wounds. 85-year-old sick woman, a pregnant woman, children, the aged, the sick.
These are the families of those who have been abducted.
No, those that are in the forest, the sick, those that need their medications.
Including an 85-year-old woman.
85-year-old sick woman. We spoke with her father, with her son. He was talking to us and crying. I came back home, I was telling my wife, I could see tears running her eyes. Because she has an 85-year-old mother living with us, sick. For goodness sake, government, govern with the milk of humanity. Don't shut yourself from people. These are human beings, these are people. During this month of Ramadan, you break the fast, you will eat all the good things. Think about, say a prayer to those that are in the forest.
Thank you. So, but the abductors of these people have so far released 2 videos, you know, making demands on the federal government. But the state government says that the Kaduna state government, it has a policy of not negotiating at all with terrorists or bandits. Is that policy also in the federal government? And if that is the case, how does it affect the chances of survival of these victims?
Right. Suleiman, don't get me started with the way the governor of Kaduna State has been handling security in his state. I've said it severally in this program, several programs, that he's failed. And he said as much on a radio, and a BBC Hausa interview radio on the 31st of March, I think, when he visited victims in Giwa. He admitted he has failed and he was seeking forgiveness. Well, this is a latter-day repentance. The way he's been handling security is the most irresponsible way a leader would handle security. And to continue talking, especially when he talks on Hausa platforms, and there's bandits hear him, they think he's daring them. Leaders must be circumspect. So I don't want to talk about
consequences on raising.
So I don't want to talk about the way Kaduna State governor has been handling security.
The federal
it's not.
Government.
The federal government cannot afford to stay aloof. Must be involved. Whatever it's doing, if it's doing it quietly, it doesn't have to come and tell us. But at least tell the family quietly that we're doing something. It doesn't have to come and tell us, because they came out, these terrorists came out. These are not regular ragtag bandits. And I've said it severally. Over the 2 years that we've been going into the forest, Shegumi would talk to me with a sense of urgency that we need to get to these bandits before this Boko Haram ISWAP gets to them with their twisted religious ideologies. And so now they have gotten to them. For the first time, there is this marriage. The first time we saw that train attack, we knew this is not the handiwork of ragtag bandits. The pointers are there. The audacity of the attack. Number one. Number two, hitting infrastructure and using bombs, explosives. That's not the modus operandi of bandits. Infrastructure, remember, Maiduguri, Nigerians may not know, the capital city of Borno State, Maiduguri, has been without electricity now for 16, 17 months because Boko Haram blew the transmission line into Maiduguri. It was fixed, they blew it up again. So they have a history of blowing infrastructure. So they've blown this, and they tried it again last October, the same rail line.
Yes.
So you will ask the Federal Ministry of Transportation, what lessons did you learn? And how have you put measures to prevent this kind of thing happening. And they tried to breach the airport in Kaduna. These are transport infrastructure to Kaduna by road, and the next day, with audacity, they blocked the Kaduna-Abuja highway.
But Prof, what can inform the alliance between bandits, as we used to know them, and regular Boko Haram or religious insurgents, virus groups, Ansaru, ISWAP, and so on? What's there for that alliance?
No,
why would they want to?
Good, and this is lethal. Nigerians need to ask themselves. Boko Haram has been going around now for 13, going to 14 years.
Yes.
And even before they picked up arms, they were going around the Northwest preaching for Muslim faithfuls to listen to them. Nigerians need to ask themselves, why did they not get a foothold in the Northwest?
Yes.
It wasn't for lack of trying, and it wasn't accidental. It was because of the proactive, behind the scene, vigorous work of traditional rulers and clergy in the Northwest, preaching to Muslim faithfuls not to get involved with this. You remember the late Emir of Kano,
yes.
Ado Bayero, nearly got blown away by Boko Haram.
Yes.
They have been wanting a foothold in the Northwest. All this time is the largest population geopolitical zone. But now they have gotten this foothold, the marriage between bandits and Boko Haram. And the bandits, remember, they do not have a unified structure. All you need is a big bandit that control a place. If you have that alliance, you wreak havoc. Niger State, ISWAP is already planting their flags. Who was the first bandit to have to bring them to Niger? It was Dogo Gide. When he killed Buhari Daji, he needed to bolster his flanks. He brought them. Now they are planting flags in Niger State. They've gotten to North Central. Bindungwari in Kaduna State is essentially now an Ansaru territory. So the marriage, we have been warning all this time. We need to not allow this marriage between ISWA, Boko Haram with their twisted ideology. With their international connection and with their international financing.
But what would bandits gain from that alliance? An alliance of that kind?
You have these guys coming with all these baggages they have, aligning with these bandits that they know the terrain. Boko Haram in Sambisa forest, Boko Haram are city folks in the forest. Bandits, the Fulanis in the forest, that's their domain. They know the terrain. Boko Haram, they don't know the terrain. So any marriage between these two, you have bandits that know the terrain, that are fearless, that are more rugged than Boko Haram or ISWAP. They're more rugged. That is their home. They know the terrain. Any marriage between them is lethal. It's going to be worse than the Taliban in Afghanistan or Al-Shabaab. That's what we've been trying to tell Nigerians, to tell the security agencies and the government not to allow this to happen.
Thank you. So some people have raised this idea of terrain that you're speaking. Some people have raised concerns that maybe that's the most effective way of dealing with this situation, of having military boots on the ground, right there, in these terrains, to engage the bandits directly. Because even some of these places that are described as forest, they're not really, like, for some of the videos are showing plain spaces, not forest as you understand them in other parts of the country or other parts of the world.
Yeah, and these three areas have been notorious since the beginning of this administration, since the last IGP. The three areas on that road is Katari, Rijana, and Jere. You think like a country with the standing armed forces and police, we could not dominate this area, but we were able to dominate Anambra State with 34,000 security agents for an election. For an election, so protecting the ballot box is more important than protecting people. It's the same Rijana that has been notorious all this time. You allow this, and anybody that has intelligence will know this area that this train was blown up was strategic. Strategic, buffeted by Hill. And this thing was done before. What lessons were learned? The time to lay blame will come. But people need to take responsibility, and I see nobody taking responsibility. The primary responsibility for all of us Nigerians is to put pressure on the federal government to get our people out of the forest. Not only in the forest where these passengers from Abuja, Kaduna were abducted, but all the forests in this country.
But the strategy that the government uses is largely airstrikes.
Yeah.
So some are saying, why not have actual Nigerian soldiers on the ground to engage, and demonstrate the federal power for once?
Good. So you ask yourself, So you ask yourself, you count what is the force of the Nigerian police, Nigerian army total, and what is the force of bandits? So bandits are defeating us. Then you have to say we must be doing something wrong. We must be doing something wrong. First of all, we all know we don't have enough boots on the ground. And our military is overstretched, deployed in 34 out of 36 states, essentially doing internal policing. This is not police. This is not the military's job. This is the police. Is essentially doing internal policing, putting out fires everywhere, Bazari, Kwantagora. You can't do that. There's no military that will survive this. So strategically, we don't have enough boots on the ground. It is the police that are closest to the people, not the military that comes and does operations and go. But there is all the villages you go to, no police. So we don't have enough police. We don't have enough soldiers. We are buying $1 billion helicopter Cobra. We are buying Tucano. We don't have boots on the ground. No Tucano, no Cobra helicopter. We'll finish this thing if we don't have boots on the ground. And I've said it repeatedly. I'll repeat it again. There is a strategic role for the military. There's not going to be a military solution to banditry in Nigeria.
Yes.
The role of the military is to provide an enabling environment for dialogue to happen. But first of all, you must understand the genesis and get back to the problem and solve it. All this fire brigade approach will not do that.
I'll come to we'll deal with the issues of, the final, how do we deal with that as solutions, But in the meantime, if the military overstretched, operating in 34 out of, which is crazy, and then, or you have police also overstretched because they're not enough. Does that make the suggestion by some people, that we should then hire mercenaries? Does that make that a reasonable? Because mercenaries are, some people would say, highly experienced fighting forces. They come in, do their job, and leave.
Yeah, I think during Jonathan, the dying days of the regime, they brought mercenaries, and they did some good work in some bits of forest. This is different. This is different. The Boko Haram, they are an army to be killed. They are sitting there with their tanks, and these are small, 10, 15, everywhere, all stretched all over. We went to Niger State. Niger State, I appreciate how big Niger is. You can pull up all the 5 states in the southeast and put them into Niger. You will still have enough space.
Yes.
It's a huge land. So what do you want? You do not have, and let anybody think in an election year, you can bring mercenaries to do anything. So the governor of Kaduna State, yes, talked about, he said, I swore, if the military doesn't do this, he will mobilize the northern state governors to bring mercenaries. And I said it. This is a political grandstanding, of course, because he has a law degree, he knows that. And there is a term in the law called ultra vires, doing that which you do not have power to do.
Interesting.
No governor has the power to do that. It is the prerogative of the president and commander-in-chief. And essentially what that statement was reckless, because it is a threat to the president and commander-in-chief and the military. If you don't do this, we will do this. You don't do that.
Thank you. I think I have a follow-up question for that, but we want to go on a short break. When we return, we'll continue from there. Thank you for staying with us. So far, we've been talking about Nigerians in captivity in a Ramadan period. What would it mean for them? What would it mean for their their families especially? I've been discussing with Professor Usman Yusuf, Professor of Hematology Oncology, who is widely familiar with these issues. Stay with us and we'll be right back.
To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve their sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels, leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
Welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV, and we're discussing issues, the aftermath of the Kaduna-Abuja train attack 3 weeks after. I've been discussing with Professor Usman Yusuf, whom, like I said, is well familiar with these issues. So, Prof, as I was asking, it's one thing for the governor of a state to make this statement. And granted, like you rightly said, he doesn't have the power. But the idea itself, is it advisable in its own right? Is it advisable, regardless of who says it, to hire mercenaries to then deal with this issue?
Banditry, mercenaries will not do it.
Okay.
Instead, why don't you train your soldiers all these 7 years that you've been in government to address this new security threat that is entirely different from the Boko Haram you've been fighting in 7 years? What training have you given your soldiers? You don't have big boots on the ground, but you can do training snipers or whatever. What have you done? Instead of train more of your people if you do not have enough boots on the ground. But without boots on the ground, we cannot do this. We'll just be putting fires out. Another thing, very importantly, if you do not understand the genesis, if you do not want to solve the problem, this thing will go until kingdom come. Zamfara State, where I went to secondary school,
yes,
is the center, the nidus of banditry in Nigeria. 70% of bandits in Nigeria can trace their origin back to Zamfara State. That's where I went to secondary school. I know Zamfara. How did we get here? If you do not ask such questions and go back and solve such problems, all these bandits, they still have their parents alive. They have their uncles, they have their in-laws living in villages. Have they ever been engaged? If you don't solve the problems back in Zamfara, that cancer has spread all over. They're kid soldiers. You kill this bandit leader, another will spring
take
up.
their place.
So, understanding it, that was why we invested our lives all this time, put our lives at risk to understand. You don't understand a conflict, how are you going to fight it? And I have seen the president in his addresses. He said, of all the conflicts in this country, this banditry is the one he doesn't understand.
Yes.
He said that. He said, the same people, the same religion killing themselves.
He said it in Hausa when he went to Sokoto.
When he visited the Sultan of Sokoto. I was sitting with my wife. My wife said, this is the problem. If the president and commander-in-chief does not understand this conflict, then what are his directives to his war commanders?
Interesting.
What are his yardstick for success? And why has he not understood it? What is his national security team doing that they have not made him understand.
Maybe he was expressing frustration at how things got to this level.
Good. How did it
because
get?
of the intimacy between the various groups?
Absolutely, but it is on his turf. I mean, the buck stops there. Why doesn't he understand it? Why have they not made him understand? He needs to understand. I'm a doctor. You cannot write a prescription without knowing. So we've written prescriptions without understanding what the diagnosis is. My wife said, this is the problem. And I said, yes. And this is the solution too. If we go back to understand, we will retrace and solve this. It will be easy if you understand to solve. But military throwing things, we cannot do it. Even the military will tell you, we are overstretched. In Zamfara State, the military is even asked to handle matrimonial issues. Everything is the military. The military cannot do this alone. The police cannot do this alone. It has to be a collective of the federal government, the security agencies, the traditional rulers, and the clerics that live with the people, and the community leaders. Big plans from Abuja without consulting people locally hasn't worked for 7 years and will never work. I'm asking the federal government to reconnect with people, to understand where are we where we are. The military cannot solve this problem.
Thank you. So another new development is Niger and Kaduna. They are emerging as the new epicenters of this rising situation. You know, Zamfara, Sokoto, and Katsina, they seem to be quieter in recent weeks. You know, so what does that say?
It tells us we're in bigger trouble than we thought we've been, especially with the marriage of these bandits and Iswa Boko Haram. I don't have the intelligence, but what we are hearing is that the bandits that align with whoever these Boko Haram guys are, they're from Zamfara. They came for special duties. Everything you can trace back to Zamfara.
Interesting.
Everything. Kaduna. In the whole of this country, after Lagos, Kaduna is the one that is the most garrisoned. They have the most military installations. But Kaduna is quarantined. Zaire City, the gate, Kof and Gaya is there. They are at the gate. So why? You have to look at how the leadership have been handling security. Kaduna doesn't have more forest than Katsina or Bindungwari has been a no-go area forever. Bindungwari, Igabi, Chukun, Giwa, they're all hot spots. Southern Kaduna, the leadership need to sit down, not go talking on Hausa, BBC or VOA, and these rascals in the forest think you're daring them. And they keep, we don't need this. We don't need all this grandstanding. What we need are adults to sit down and sort these problems out. Kaduna is worse than Zamfara. Niger is like becoming a domain, an annex of Boko Haram. ISWAP, they are planting their flags there. Government and the intelligence agencies need to ask themselves why. And work with everybody. There are locals, there are the traditional rulers, and the clerics are the ones that live with the people. They are the ones that are the source of intelligence, not Abuja. So you're not talking with your traditional rulers, you're not talking with people, you want to bring mercenaries. So it's the way it's handled. The federal government needs to get involved. The federal government has been aloof. The idea of the federal government in fighting banditry is to militarize it, not looking at the human aspect and find out how. Read former IG.
So does that end up making things worse? Or?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. There's nowhere in this world, none, where you bomb grievances, where you bomb poverty.
Absolutely.
None. President Umar Musa Yar'Adua was the first president to sit down and listen to the genuine grievances of Ogoni people and people of the Niger Delta. Genuine. We've been polluting their land since the beginning of this nation and squeezing oil from there. None of the previous presidents listened to them. They were blowing pipes and taking hostages and crippling the economy of this country. President Umar Musa Yar'Adua realized you cannot fight this militarily. He listened, he brought everybody down, listen. created Ministry of Niger Delta, and NDDC was quiet. But look at what NDDC has become. That's another story.
Yeah.
But what it teaches any leader is you must listen. It's not everything that the military can take care of.
So many people are complaining that, you mentioned earlier about empty directives, and so on. What about the second level officials that are dealing with these issues? The service chiefs themselves, the head of police, the chief of army staff, the national security advisors, these are heavy appointments, highest level appointments in their own rights that, they don't need, that one might even say that on their own, they know their responsibilities, they know that there are times of reference, and so on. They don't need to be directed by the president to do their jobs, So what about that?
Absolutely. And I see all the directives of the president. So you need to be directed to do that which is your job. So this is a government that, look at the ministers, what they're doing. This is a government. You sit down, give directives, and you don't follow up. Have these directives been followed through? No. I've been looking at the video clips of the National Security Advisor anytime he comes. All this time, all the directives. You can count the numbers that have been followed. So it's not just giving directives, but making sure they are done. So lots of directives and they are not executed. If they were executed, we wouldn't be in this mess. We wouldn't be in this mess. So Mr. President needs to sit up, shake things up. There's only 1 year left.
Shake things up, do you mean that he should fire some people?
No, those that need
fire
to be,
all of them?
Those that need to, if I was the president and commander-in-chief of Nigerian Armed Forces, I would have fired the Minister of Transportation.
Okay.
Fired. You had intelligence. Kaduna State government has been given intelligence and writing to the Nigerian Railway Corporation to cancel that 6 o'clock scheduled train based on intelligence. It was ignored. It was ignored. Why this ticket racketeering? Why isn't the minister there responsible? Why are you jumping around? So nobody is responsible. All that ministry people will be fired. That's the only way. It is not the job of the military, not even in Ukraine. Would you see the military in a train? It's not the job of the military to be in a train or even to guide highway. The world is looking at us that we are requiring our military in the train, our military in the job of the police and the DSS. Nobody is held responsible. This is a government that everybody does his own thing. Nobody is held responsible. So if you're not held responsible, then we don't know who is supposed to be doing what. It's not the job of the military to guide this rail line. It's not the job of the military to guide the highway. It's not. The job of the police.
Interesting. So there's another argument around regarding this issue that, okay, because we're in an election year, maybe political interest and political processes interfering with the attention of the government in dealing with these issues, or that politics may in fact even be fueling some of these issues. Do you buy into that?
No, I've said it. I don't know. I'm not into conspiracy, but what I see and what all Nigerians see is that our politicians, from the states to the federal, are disconnected from the realities of our people, from the sufferings of our people. All they are interested in now is scrambling for office for 2023.
Yes.
And I've said it again and again, insecurity, insecurity, insecurity will unravel this country if the federal government does not sit up and give it the attention it deserves. Consensus, rotation, zoning, and all that infrastructure, that is not what we need. What we need is security in this country. This government, in the 7 years it's been, it has failed to secure this nation and protect our people. I'm from Kaduna State, I'm speaking firsthand. A third of my state is under siege by bandits. We did not see IDPs until this government came in. IDPs are something we used to think about in the Northeast. So the government has not secured, this is the primary constitutional responsibility of any government, to secure its people. secure the lives and welfare of the people. That is the only. You didn't say you must build bridges, you must do this, you must do this. And you have failed. And you've given us excuse every time the Minister of Information will say, oh, they're on top of it, the Minister of Defense, on top of what? So, politics and politicians need to realize they need to have a country to govern. Without security, I don't see how credible elections can hold in 2023. Yeah, there will be elections, but they're not credible. They're not credible. And we have said it in the Northwest. We are not going to accept the kind of elections they had in the Northeast where people lined up in IDP camps to cast their votes. We are asking the federal government to secure our people so that they can go back home. Election is the least of our problems. People need to go back home and resume back to their lives.
Would that not lead to depressed voter turnout? Would that not make people to not bother to turn out?
You need to secure their homeland and let them go back home. And I hear some twisted, crazy idea. They're saying, oh, there will be census next year, 2023 in April. For goodness sake, what is happening in this government? We have millions of our people displaced from their ancestral homes. What are you going to count? Or do you want to just get the money out and say census was done? There's not going to be credible census 2023. It's an idea that is not well thought, and it shouldn't happen.
The Census Commission, the National Population Commission, they have explained some of these issues that I'm just raising
go ahead.
That they have devised methodological techniques to be able to reach even people who have been displaced in areas where they now live, to maybe in IDP camps or maybe with host communities.
Right. And I will tell you...
And still take their censuses.
Suleiman, I will tell you, bring the chairman here, they are just talking gibberish. We have millions of our people in Niger Republic, in Chad, in the Cameroon, displaced. Oh, you're going to do this. Just quit insulting us, for Christ's sake.
But the census will probably also help census data.
Right, but how are you going to do
towards security?
Suleiman, whatever is worth doing right.
Absolutely.
And what you don't do with sincerity, who are you deceiving? We've been around this country forever. Who are you deceiving? What is the urgency to do census? The urgency is to secure our land.
Absolutely.
That is the urgency, and that alone. Let no one come and tell me from Jibia to Faskari to Sabua down you can hold credible census or credible elections. Zamfara, Giwa, Bindungwari, Igabi, Chukun, all of them are on fire. In the southeast, the governor of Anambra State was declared winner with 10% of the votes. Credible elections mean people need to feel safe to go out and cast their vote for a candidate of their choice. Not to say, oh yeah, two people voted and then INEC will declare.
But what can then be the alternative?
The alternative is one and one alone.
Okay.
Everything must stop and security must be given the attention it deserves. Everything must stop, and this thing can be done. I mean, it's not going to be, security is not something you play around with.
Absolutely.
It has to be done, and if you don't do it, it shows. So you cannot just wishy-washy do it and say, oh, we're going to do election, we're going to do this. No, it will call into credibility the questions of whether this election is credible. And census April 2023, forget it, when we cannot secure our people. But most importantly now, we are calling on the federal government to secure our people that are in the forest. There are still our children in Binding Yauri, Federal Government College Binding Yauri.
Yes.
Leah Sharibu is still in captivity. Chibok girls,
so
8 years.
These are not even the Chibok girls, but especially, but all of them anyway. Because when the president spoke 2 days ago, he did not discriminate about which ones. He said that the service chiefs should rescue all Nigerians in captivity.
Yeah.
What is likely to be the end of this? Say, for example, the service chiefs failed to, rescue even some Nigerians. What should we expect either from them or from the president? Because
Right.
a presidential directive shouldn't be a joke.
Yeah, there have been many directives. You wrote it in Daily Trust. I think you need to get the National Security Advisor, who is always the one addressing the nation about these directives. And saying, if this happens, this doesn't happen, this doesn't happen, and things don't happen. But I see him nowhere in any of the media houses talking to Nigerians, explaining to them, and being grilled about the directives, about the job, or the Minister of Defense, or the Minister of Police Affairs. This is a democracy. We don't want to see uniformed people explaining themselves. It is the Minister of Defense that is in charge of, it is the Minister of Police Affairs that is in charge of the police. It is the NSA that's in charge of coordination of all of this. We don't want to see people in uniform. We want to see these presidential appointees come and be questioned and let them explain to the nation what is happening, because the president doesn't talk to us. He doesn't talk to us.
This takes us to the National Assembly. Not just the president give directives, but the National Assembly, particularly the Senate and so on, they also, speak in the public. Mr. President, fire the, and so don't they have roles, substantive roles that they too can play in bringing about the end to insecurity in the country?
And I'm sorry, but they don't know their jobs. They don't know their responsibility. The legislature is a co-equal branch of government with the executive. Co-equal. They are the ones that appropriate funds to the government and to the security agencies. Have they held the government and the security agencies to account for the funds they've been sending? No. They are the ones that approve the appointments. So they haven't done their job. Let them not come and lament just for show on camera for Nigerians to see. They have not done their job. They haven't. How many of them, how many of members of National Assembly go back home and come back and know the sufferings of their people? How many ministers in the President's Federal Executive Council that represent each of the states go back home? They're supposed to come back home, hear from us, and go and tell the President, Mr. President, in Jibia is this, in Batsari is this and this. No, they are in Abuja building castles all over the place. So everybody is on his own. Nobody is for nobody, I'm for nobody. This is what it's turning into. Nobody is holding anybody responsible and shaking things up.
I'm for everyone,
Yeah,
I'm for, not for everyone.
I'm for everyone, I'm for nobody, I'm for nobody. So everybody is on his own doing things. But no, we are not happy. We Nigerians are not happy the way things are going. We are the twilight years of this government, 7 years out of 8. Insecurity is not getting better. Our lives are at risk everywhere. We're poorer than before this government came. We are less secure. Corruption is thriving more.
So there's some opinion out there that the rising challenge of insecurity is in fact a manifestation, similar to what these people describe as government failure in other areas, economy, society, that the country is really not being governed, and that the answer to this is for the president to resign. So maybe we can end with that. What's your opinion? Does that...
Yeah, the Northern Elders Forum said this, and this is not the first time they've said it before.
Yes.
And they didn't say it. It's not they. I'm part of the Northern Elders Forum.
Okay.
It's not, this is well thought out. It's not out of, it's a reflection of frustrations of everybody. From the governors to the clerics to the traditional rulers. If the governor of my state, Katsina State, the president states, and the ruling party is telling the citizens, arm yourselves and defend yourselves. He's saying we're giving up. Yeah, he said it. So we're giving up. The president state, ruling party, arm yourselves, people, we have failed. Mr. Governor, who do we go to? You go to Kaduna now, people, kidnapped people, relatives of kidnapped people are trooping to Sheikh Ahmed Gumi's house to see how he can help. Why? Because they cannot go to the governor. They cannot go to the police commissioner. They cannot go to the GOC. They cannot go to the minister representing them in President's Federal Executive Council. And they cannot go to the senator. So nobody. Clerics and traditional rulers, they're the closest to the people. They're the most important people to the people. The federal government must go back home and see how these things can be done. And the president shake things up. Things are not working. We are poorer, we are less secure, and corruption is thriving more. 2023 will be a bridge too far if there is no security. Security is more important than all this infrastructure. See, the crown jewel of the Federal Ministry of Transportation, the infrastructure, is blown up.
Exactly.
It's laying there like this. So what is Amechi coming to tell us?
Thank you. So the 2023 election is a bridge too far if security is not taken care of.
Absolutely.
I think we will, this brings us to where we draw a curtain for today's program. It's always interesting to have you on this show, Professor Usman Yusuf. Thank you. It's also interesting to have you viewers on the show because you are here. That's why we also try to be here for you. We hope you join us once again when we return here on Monday for another edition of Daily Politics on Trust TV. My name is Suleiman Suleiman. Goodbye.